Is Israeli society too fragmented? On its 75th birthday, should it stick together? Or is separation the answer for the state of Israel?
Israel is in the grip of an increasingly toxic cultural war between a modern, sophisticated side that has earned the shorthand startup nation and a variety of other sectors, mostly religious, with a phenomenal birth rate in some cases, who, if they became a majority, would turn the country into a version of Iran, where a medieval form of the Jewish religion would hold sway over all aspects of life. So this talk of separation is basically a desperation ploy by the modern side for the contingency where the religious rightist vision of Israel becomes paramount.
Some of the people forgotten the other part of democracy. Yes, majority rules, but minority have always retained their rights. And in this current constellation, as it seems, the majority doesn't really understand the minority has the ability to retain its rights. And it seems like there's a steamroll over all of our democratic rights in terms of we want to control everything. It doesn't work this way.
I have to challenge
democracy.
I have to challenge whether they're really the majority. I think there is a real question about which parts of Israeli society are on which side of what, because more or less, you see this in the polls, about a quarter of the people of Israel support these reforms as are, although I think they're pretty much dead in the water at this point. That quarter is the ultra-religious and the fascistic far right. The half oppose it, and the Likud voters, who are stuck in the middle and have been in an alliance with the far right and with the religious that may not be sustainable for much longer. And I have to disagree with you, Dr. Zubaydah. It isn't coming from the government. The government doesn't want to separate Israel into two countries. They would rather depend on a phenomenal birth rate of the Haredim to guarantee themselves a majority, assuming they stay in alliance with the right and rule as they wish. And it would be a horrible, illiberal, and untenable way to rule. But that is their plan. I think the talk of separation is actually coming from the other side, now in the opposition. And I think we should...
I agree. There's no dispute between us. I agree. The talk of separation is coming from the liberal camp, but the one who is pushing us towards this discussion is the government who steamrolls all democrats.
And by the way, if I may, I think a lot of the talk is basically meant to message to the right wing in Israel that if they really persist in pursuing things this way, they should not take us for granted. Us meaning the liberals along the coast.
Okay, Josh Haston, please chime in.
If I can,
yes.
I think it's abhorrent. It's abhorrent to me that we're calling each other enemies. It's abhorrent to me that we're comparing the government of the state of Israel to Iran or saying we can become in Iran. These are absolutely scare tactics. We just had an election in November where the majority of the country voted for the bloc that we have now.
They did not. This government has an inflated majority because 6% of the vote of the other side did not make it past the threshold. They got 49% of the vote. With that very minor mandate, they are trying to install an autocratic democracy like you have in Poland and Hungary, Turkey, and in the past in Russia before it became a full dictatorship, because that's where these things go. Now, that is a very aggressive and radical move, and it is freaking out that part of Israel that is in opposition, that was in power about a year ago. And by the way, I have to say, it is not that implausible practically, because if you essentially took the Tel Aviv area, 10 kilometers wide, 100 kilometers up and down the coast of the Haifa area.
So why stop at 2, Dan?
Hold on. May I please? And hive that off from the rest of the country, you would end up indeed with two countries with 5 million people each. And the coast, let's call it Israel, would have pretty much the highest per capita GDP in the world outside of Luxembourg, would be 80 to 90% secular, 80 to 90% center-leaning and left-leaning, and the opposite would be the case in, let's say, Judea, which is the rest of Israel. I'm not recommending it, but it's not so ridiculous to contemplate.
Not recommending, but threatening it to an extent.
When two groups of people have such antipathy between them, it's not crazy to contemplate it, yes.
It should not be regarded as it's a suggestion. Right now, the current government is doing everything to split the people. They call people traitors. They are violent towards them. They do everything to discredit them. We just heard a lie after a lie trying to relive or rebuild the truth. It doesn't work this way. If we are brothers, And I assume that would be a sentence at the end of this, and not an imagined community like Benedict Anderson, then show us we're brothers. That's the deal.
So Josh, is fake unity better than no unity?
No, I think we need real unity. I think we need to be unified when things are good. I think people need to accept the democratic process and not be sour grapes, and and not make these radical, insane comparisons that we're becoming Iran, that we're becoming some radical country.
Well, we are.
And again,
that's what
I've
will
said
happen.
this last time.
Perhaps the
call it Israel
viewers
and
should
call it
know
something else.
what the reforms really were.
Preposterous.
They wanted the government to appoint the judges and to be able to even overrule its puppets by a majority of one in the parliament, which basically means that the prime minister becomes omnipotent. That is the model that you have in Hungary. And I think you have vastly underestimated the degree to which that political overreach has created toxicity in this country. And you get what you deserve when we have to confront a desire by the modern part of Israel to perhaps escape this fate.
Now, 48% of respondents believing the situation in Israel is only going to get worse in the coming years. Just 20% think things will improve. Compared to the same question asked shortly after the last elections, 42% then believe the situation would worsen, meaning that in the past 5 months, 6% more people feel the situation is going to deteriorate. And when asked whether they felt represented by the Benjamin Netanyahu government, 60% said no. Just 27% saying yes. And by the way, when it comes to the judicial overhaul, 53, a majority, believe it is harmful. 32 think it is beneficial. So let's get to it, gentlemen. Another quick fire round, 30 seconds each. Is separation non-democratic, simply put? Dan Perry.
Look, you could say a separation. You could say a separation might be undesirable. You can say it might be impractical, mainly because it would be difficult to defend the rump coastal modern Israel. But I don't see why it's undemocratic for two groups that decide they don't belong together to live apart. It would be something of a tragedy for Zionism in a way, but it would also be tragic for the outcome of Zionism to be an undemocratic Jewish supremacist theocracy governed by extremist rabbis. If the coming election will result, as all the polls currently show, in a swing to the left, that would be because a shock to the system had been administered by the effort to reform the country into an authoritarian one, similar to the Second Intifada that caused a lurch to the right 20 years ago. That could happen. And if that happens, and the result is a centrist government, with the center-left plus the Likud in a post-Bibi era attacking the issue of internal covenants between the religious and the secular, that could really change things. And it's very important. I have to say this. People don't understand. The goalposts are moving all the time because of the phenomenal, and I would say reckless, Haredi birth rate, which, if it continues as is, will take them from a sixth of the country today to a majority. And these are people who refuse, it's a sector that refuses to adopt a core curriculum that insists on salaries, in some cases lifelong salaries for yeshiva students. That is the lowest participation rate in the economy of any other sector in Israel, and essentially is subsidized. This lunatic house of cards cannot continue, and this is what's driving the fear on the left, the constantly moving goalposts that is the implication of the Haredi birth rate. That whole arrangement with them, the accommodation with them, is driving all this because they are the main sector that wants to reform the system to eliminate the power of the Supreme Court, because the Supreme Court,
apparently
the
value,
of equality
the secular value of equality was given a price tag this past week when it comes to the debate over exempting ultra-Orthodox students from serving in the army. So that's the other side of the political aisle that, again, put a price on the value of equality. Yeah.
I think we should allow this government the opportunity, as it hasn't had a chance to. It's been busy dealing with all these protests. Give them a chance to rule, because they were elected to do so.
Okay, Dan Perry, wrap it up for us. Yeah.
So I don't know if in the end Israel and Judea will separate. I think probably not. But what might happen is cantonization of Israel, a sort of federalization, because there is simply no way on earth that you can expect the secular people of the coastline to put up with religious rule and endless conflict with the Palestinians.
On that note, Dr. Ani Zubaydah, Josh Haston, and Dan Perry, thank you very much for this 2 minutes, and we're back with more.